Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. I'm your host, Brenda. I have a special edition for you. In this edition, we're going to cover some updates on the Dakota Access Pipeline, otherwise known as DAPL, and some information about the Bundys trial in Oregon, some things going on there, and then I have an article that I wanted to bring to your attention about Lavoy Finicum. So we're going to start off here. This first article that I have, or the first two articles, are about this first one is off of the freethoughtproject.com, and it is entitled Miles from Standing Rock Pipeline Rupture Spills Unknown Amount of Oil in North Dakota Waterway. As the battle to halt construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline kicks up a notch, another water body contaminated by an oil spill, this one just 200 miles from the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, reinforces the legitimacy of the movement to protect water from big oil. Bell Forch Pipeline Company shut down its 6-inch crude pipeline after oil leaked into Ashkoolie Creek in Billings County in western North Dakota, not geographically distant from where the Standing Rock Sioux and thousands of water protectors are enduring deteriorating winter conditions in camps near the Missouri River Lake Oahe Reservoir. A series of booms have been placed across the creek to prevent downstream migration, and a siphon dam has been constructed 4 miles downstream of the release point, said Bill Sues, spill investigator program manager for the North Dakota Department of Health, reported the Duluth News Tribune on Tuesday. Bismarck Tribune, the State Department of Health sent investigators to the scene on Monday and Tuesday as frigid temperatures, high winds, and wintry conditions gripped the area in an attempt to contain the oil pipeline spill that has impacted about 2.5 miles of the Ashkoolie Creek and a tributary creek in the Badlands. Ashkoolie Creek empties into the Little Missouri River about 20 miles from where the leak occurred, but officials claimed they doubt spilled crude would extend that far. No estimate to the volume or impact of the crude spill have been announced as this article goes to publication, but any contamination with toxic crude can have devastating impacts on sensitive ecosystems, particularly if the spill isn't contained hastily. Oil, gas, and pipeline companies insist pipelines are the safest means versus rail, boat, and tanker truck to transport crude and other petroleum types. While this might be technically true, regulatory inadequacies, aging infrastructure, and other issues indicate otherwise. Indeed, with greater infrastructure already in place, oil transport by rail could be updated for increased safety for far more cheaply and readily, making the construction of new pipelines redundant, inefficient, dangerous, and contentious, particularly with the necessity of moving away from the use of fossil fuels. A growing movement, including those fighting construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline, justifiably believe no safe method to transport oil currently exists and thus should be left in the ground. In fact, oil pipeline spills and leaks occur with alarming frequency, giving the appallingly toxic human health, the environment, and the nation's drinking water supplies. And Bell Forch is no exception, as EcoWatch reports. And here's what they say, quote, Bell Forge Pipeline Company is part of the family-owned True Company, which also operates Brigadier Pipeline LLC. Both pipelines are operated from the same control room in Casper, Wyoming. From 2006 to 2014, Bell Forge reported 21 incidents, leaking a total of 272,832 gallons of oil. Brigadier Pipeline recorded 9 pipeline incidents in the same period, spilling nearly 11,000 gallons of crude. A Bell Forge pipeline that spilled 12,200 gallons in May 2014 occurred on BLM near, try that again, on BLM land near Buffalo, Wyoming. It was later discovered that Bell Forge did not have a permit to operate the land. Its sister company, Brigadier, was fined $27,029 for trespassing by BLM. City Lab, which recently mapped 30 years of significant oil pipeline spills and leaks, noted data from the federal government suggests such concerns should be taken seriously. Over the last 20 years, more than 9,000 significant pipeline-related incidents have taken place nationwide, according to data from the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. The accidents have resulted in 548 deaths, 2,546 injuries, and over $8.5 billion in financial damages. Not counted in this are thousands of less significant pipeline-related malfunctions. As Seuss of the North Dakota Department of Health explained, this spill came from an above-ground section of pipeline, and though the cause remains unclear, nearby construction is being investigated as a possibility. We don't think it was leaking real long, he asserts. The landowner detected it fairly rapidly. Bell Forge has received 6 warnings concerning pipeline integrity and safety issues from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, reports the News Tribune. Standing Rock Sioux water protectors received a brief reprieve on Sunday when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers announced it would perform a lengthier environmental impact study and consider rerouting before granting Energy Transfer Partners an easement to route the Dakota Access Pipeline under the Missouri River. But that symbolic win turned into a familiar disappointment when ETP and Sunoco Logistics, currently in the midst of a merger, issued a statement hours later vowing it would not reroute the pipeline and construction would continue unhindered, stating, quote, "As stated all along, ETP and SXL are fully committed to ensuring that this vital project is brought to completion and fully expect to complete construction of the pipeline without any additional rerouting in and around Lake Oahe. Nothing this administration has done today changes that in any way," unquote. Around Standing Rock, unconfirmed reports claim ETP has already completed much of the drilling under Lake Oahe and plan to continue drilling, and fines imposed for going ahead with construction on Army Corps managed land without appropriate permitting. Following a nasty blizzard in the area on Monday and Tuesday, a bit of discussion erupted in Standing Rock as to the future opposition to the Dakota Access. And although some water protectors have since left the Oseti Saskatchewan main camp, many others vowed to stay until construction permanently halts. The next article that I have is entitled, well, first it's off of Western Journalism, and it is entitled, "Trump to Review Obama's Decision Stopping Work on the Dakota Access Pipeline." President-elect Donald Trump supports the Dakota Access Pipeline and plans to review President Obama's move to halt work on the project once he's in the White House, according to a spokesman. "With regard to the Dakota Access Pipeline, that's something that we support construction of, and we'll review the full situation when we're in the White House to make appropriate determination at that time," said Jason Miller, a spokesman for the Trump transition. On Sunday, the Obama administration blocked further construction of the pipeline and said alternate routes should be explored. The pipeline, which was approved by the Army Corps of Engineers, is more than 70% complete. Supporters of the DAPL have criticized the decision and accused Obama of playing politics. "This purely political decision flies in the face of common sense and the rule of law," says Craig Stevens, spokesman for the Midwest Alliance for Infrastructure Now coalition, in a statement. Energy Transfer Partners, the company developing the pipeline, released a statement Sunday calling the decision just the latest in a series of overt, transparent political actions by an administration which has abandoned the rule of law in favor of currying favor with narrow and extreme political constituency. Republicans in Congress have also panned the Obama administration for blocking easement. House Speaker Paul Ryan tweeted Sunday that he was looking forward to getting rid of this anti-energy presidency. Representative Kevin Cramer, Republican of North Dakota, issued a scathing statement in response to Sunday's action and expressed his view that Trump will overturn it. I hope even a lawsuit, or try that again. I hope even a lawless president wouldn't continue to ignore the rule of law. However, it was becoming increasingly clear he was putting this issue down the road, or punting this issue down the road. Today's unfortunate decision sends a very chilling signal to others who want to build infrastructure in this country. Roads, bridges, transmission lines, pipelines, wind farms, and water lines will be very difficult, if not impossible, to build when criminal behavior is rewarded this way. In my conversations with Assistant Secretary of the Army, Jo Ellen Darcy, today, she was unable to give any legal reason for the decision and could not answer any questions about rerouting the pipeline. I'm encouraged we will restore law and order next month when we get a president who will not thumb his nose at the rule of law. I feel badly for the Corps of Engineers because the diligent work it did on the project, only to have their commander-in-chief throw them under the bus. But he's been doing that to the military for 8 years, so why not one more time on his way out the door? Energy Transfer Partners CEO Kelsey Warren told NBC News in November that he was 100% sure that the pipeline will be approved by a Trump administration. I believe we will have a government in place that believes in energy infrastructure, Warren said. And that is the news on the pipeline. And the next one that I have, well, let's see. I think I'll start with the Bundys. This is off of the Washington Examiner, and it says Trump urged to pardon Oregon ranchers who sparked armed standoff. Of the father and son ranchers whose case led to a protracted armed standoff, started a petition on the official White House website. It asked President-elect Donald Trump to pardon the pair on the day of his inauguration. Dwight and Steve Hammond are the ranchers from Burns, Oregon, who were sentenced to prison for controlled burns on their land that got out of hand and scorched some federal foliage as well. They were sentenced and served time, then were made to serve longer sentences. The two were trapped by federal mandatory minimums that were created to fight not carelessness, but terrorism. Several locals and outside agitators came to Burns to protest the arguably unjust sentences early this year, and things escalated quickly. In a move that the Hammonds themselves denounced, armed protesters occupied for 40 days the nearby Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. The conflict resulted in plenty of press coverage and one occupier being shot dead by law enforcement. This popped up in the news again last month. A jury acquitted the Occupy organizers, including Ammon and Ryan Bundy and several others, of all charges brought against them by federal government in connection with the armed protest. Although the brothers Bundy and their father Cliven still face charges in another armed standoff. During the armed occupation, then candidate Trump signaled a willingness to hear the armed occupiers out about the plight of the Hammonds and other issues associated with federal management of vast tracts of land in the western states. Right now, the billionaire said in January, I talked to the leader. I would talk to him and I would say, you got to get out, come see me, but you got to get out. The protesters are out and things have calmed down. The Hammonds supporters are hoping that Trump is still in a listening mood. The official petition was posted on the We the People website Saturday. It has until December the 19th to get 100,000 digital signatures to guarantee an official response from the White House. This article is in of the video that I'm doing, so you can click on that, pull that up, and you know, click on the link there to the petition and sign that, and try to help them get the needed signatures. The last article that I have for you is off the OregonianLive.com. Now, this one is an old article, but it's one that I had not seen before, and apparently there has been no follow-up on this for justice. So I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. I don't know if there's anybody out there that is listening to my broadcast that can shed some light on what has transpired since this, or why this is not being followed up on, or what's going on with it. But I'm going to read it. It is off of OregonianLive.com, and it says, investigation of FBI agents involved in Lavoy Finicum shooting shocks the justice community. Was a March article. It says, it's drummed into every police officer and federal agent during training. They must report every time they discharge their gun on duty and justify each shot. So Tuesday's announcement that a member of the FBI elite hostage rescue team allegedly failed to disclose 2 gunshots fired at Robert Lavoy Finicum seemed inconceivable to former FBI agents and criminal justice experts. That the bullets missed their apparent target drew even more disbelief. One struck the roof of Finicum's truck, and another missed Finicum and his pickup. Here you have one of the best trained units in the FBI. They're only supposed to shoot when there's an active threat. You would hope they would be accurate in doing so, said Michael German, a 16-year veteran of FBI who now serves as national security expert and fellow at the Brennan Center for Justice in New York University's School of Law. State police troopers fatally shot Finicum moments later when he reached for a gun in his pocket, according to the FBI and investigators led by the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office. Finicum was one of the top spokesmen for the occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, a bird sanctuary 30 miles southeast of Burns. Investigations are now underway to sort out what happened with the FBI shots. A special agent from the U.S. Department of Justice Inspector General's Office, the FBI Inspectors Division, and Dutchess County Sheriff's Office are examining whether the shots were justified and the reported failure to disclose them. 4 other FBI hostage rescue team agents are also under investigation. And I'll stop right there for a minute. So what happened? Why haven't we been told what happened with the FBI, with these agents? Did anybody lose their job? Is anybody held accountable? Or is this all just being held because Mrs. Finicum has filed charges for wrongful death, and so nothing's being released until the trial comes out? I don't understand. You should be informed on this. But I digress. I'll go back to the article. It says, quote, in the FBI, the most important thing is to tell the truth, unquote, said Danny Colson, who served as special agent in charge of the FBI in Oregon from 1988 to 1991, before becoming the agency's deputy assistant director in charge of terrorism operations. Colson was the first commander of the FBI hostage rescue team and was a deputy FBI director during the bloody 1992 shootout in Ruby Ridge, Idaho. He now runs a security consulting business in Texas. An agent who doesn't report a shooting could face anything from serious discipline to demotion to criminal charges, depending on what an investigation finds. Retired veteran FBI agents and others in the justice system said they'd expect that the investigation will cast a shadow on the FBI and feed anti-government conspiracy theorists. Several urged the FBI leadership to publicly release its findings as soon as they're available. Anytime the FBI is not completely honest in something like a shooting that harms the entire agency, German said. Brian Levin, director of California State University's Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism and a former New York police officer, agreed. This will be fodder for every conspiracy theorist from coast to coast, Levin said. It is bewildering because we're talking about the cream de la cream of the FBI. So this development is a surprise. All law enforcement officers are trained to report any on-duty shooting. This is something that's elemental in training, Levin said. Investigators said they will try to determine why the agent did not report the shots. Was it intentionally not disclosed, and if so, why? Said James Wiedeck, a retired FBI agent who served for nearly 35 years and last ran the Public Corruption Squad in Sacramento. If they were trying to deceive somebody, that's a problem for the agents, and I'm sure their managers are upset as heck about this. It defies reasoning. The Dutchess County Sheriff revealed that his investigators could account for 3 of the bullet holes that hit Finicum's truck as coming from state police troopers. At first, they couldn't figure out where a 4th that hit the roof had originated. That led to the discovery it came from FBI agents, he said. The FBI's deadly force policy is the same as Oregon's. Agents can use deadly force if they believe they or someone else are at risk of death or serious injury. They're also trained to consider a moving vehicle as a potential deadly weapon and to stop it by incapacitating the driver. Since the FBI agents, 2 shots came as Finicum exited his truck after plowing into a snowbank at the roadblock. Investigators will examine if the agent thought Finicum was still a serious threat. Did they think the driver was armed, or did the driver jump out making furtive movements? If the vehicle stopped, then you'd have to show the operator is still a threat to you or someone else's safety, said Todd Anderson, training director at the State Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. German said it would appear that shooting at Finicum could still be justified at that point. That's why not reporting it doesn't make sense, he said. It's shocking to me that someone would not have reported it, particularly if it was around the time the car crashed and the subject came out of the vehicle. There seems to be some justification, German said. The agent's reasoning will depend on where he was standing at the time and what he saw Finicum doing. The FBI does not shoot fleeing felons unless they're maneuvering to get a better position. If the individual is maneuvering for tactical advantage, then it can be justified, he said. Yet Daryl Johnson, a former U.S. Department of Homeland Security terrorism expert, wondered if the shots were accidental. For a bullet to strike the roof of Finicum's pickup, Johnson wondered if the FBI agent was firing from a shooting ladder. The ladders are used to give agents a better vantage point, particularly when they're dealing with occupants of an SUV or pickup, he said. Shooting ladder was at the scene on US 395, but authorities haven't said if the agent was on one. If they didn't hit the target, I mean, these are the elite of the elite. Something had to have happened. A mishap, maybe, said Johnson, who also worked for the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives agent, and now is a domestic terrorism consultant in the Washington, D.C. area. One possible explanation could be the officer stumbled or slipped and discharged the gun, he said. The other agents are likely under investigation for not reporting the shot. Oregon investigators would not detail why the other agents are under investigation, saying only it was for actions after the fact. Their team members fired a shot, they should have heard it, Woodlick said. If that's the case, was there some collusion to cover up the shots? Former FBI agents and law enforcement experts said it would be easier to understand if there was a mistake made in the midst of the chaotic shooting, but not such a lapse after the shootings. And then there is a picture here of the bullet hole, or well, it's a drawing of the bullet hole in the top of the truck, and you know the occupants where they were sitting, and you can pull that up and take a look at that for yourself if you would like to. It says, since there's a potential for criminal charges, the agent who fired may refuse to talk. That might lead investigators to grant immunity to his fellow agents to learn what had occurred, criminal justice experts said. At the least, the agent likely won't remain on the hostage rescue team. I'm pretty sure penalty is going to be severe. I do think there's a good chance he'd be removed from the team, Wedlick said. To those guys, that's worse than death. Paul Nathanson, a spokesman for the Washington, D.C. based FBI Agents Association, declined to comment on the inquiry because it's still pending. Last week, U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch was in Portland and praised the federal, state, and local police response to the refugee takeover, or to the refuge takeover. Until now, Withik said he too thought the law enforcement response was largely restrained, but now he said it's incredible. Try that again. It will incite more things. That's why the managers are going to be so furious about this. This was the last thing they wanted to hear. So this article again is from March, and yet I have yet to hear the names of those responsible for this. What's being done about it in the FBI? Has anyone been fired? Has anyone been demoted? Has anyone been held accountable and responsible? I'd also like other information, such as whose brilliant idea was it to set up that unlawful, well, they're calling it a traffic stop. It was, well, I have some colorful language for what it really was. That mess that they set up out there and blindsided those people. And in my opinion, they tried to kill them all. I'd like to know who's being held accountable for this, and why is it taking so long for this to be outed to the public on, what is going on with this. I think part of it might be Mrs. Finicum's lawsuit that's holding it up, and maybe this information will come out in the trial. But if they're in this article obviously admitting that there were mistakes made, then who's being held accountable for it? That's what I'd like to know. So there you have this special edition. If you like what we're doing, give it a thumbs up, put your comments in, let us know what you think about this, share it around, let everybody know what the real news is, and I'll see you on the next edition.